Sometimes the first thing a man loses isn't his strength, it's his confidence. It doesn't go all at once. It slips out quietly the way blood doesn't flow quite like it used to, or the way he turns off the light a little earlier each night. I've had men sit across from me. Strong men, the kind who built things, led teams, raised families, and they'll finally say what they've held back for months, sometimes years. "Doc, I just don't feel like myself anymore." They'll glance down, adjust their watch, and what they're really asking is it gone? Am I past the point of return? The answer is no, not even close. But the truth, the part most men never hear, is that it's often not their age causing the problem. It's their food. And not just the obvious stuff. Not fried chicken and soda. I'm talking about the everyday foods men think are harmless, even healthy, that slowly choke their circulation, confuse their hormones, and rob their body of the signals it needs to function as a man. I'm Dr. Thomas Leighton. I practiced urology and men's health for over 40 years. I've seen how men decline, and I've seen how they come back. Not through gimmicks, not through pills, but through quiet choices, repeated with care. In this message, I want to walk with you through 5 foods that may be working against your erections, your energy, and your dignity, one bite at a time. And I'll show you how to replace them not with restriction, but with something better. So, if something inside you has gone quiet, if your confidence is dimming, if you've accepted less connection than you deserve, stay with me. And if this speaks to you even just a little, type 1. If it doesn't, type 0. Either way, I thank you for listening. Let's start with something nearly every man over 60 consumes without thinking twice. Salt. High-sodium foods are everywhere. Canned soups, deli meats, frozen dinners, sauces. And what they do inside the body is subtle, but devastating. When sodium builds up, it raises your blood pressure. And when pressure rises, your arteries begin to narrow and stiffen, especially the small ones in your pelvis, the ones responsible for the very thing you think you've lost. An erection is a hydraulic event. It's not just about desire. It's about blood rushing in, creating pressure, and holding it. But when salt has hardened those vessels, the blood can't arrive. And even if it does, it can't stay. I remember Mark, 67, retired fireman, rugged, straight talker. He came in frustrated. "Doc, I quit smoking. I walk every morning, but nothing's happening." He was eating light, mostly canned soups and frozen meals, doing what he thought was right. But his sodium intake was double what his body could handle. I asked him to switch low-sodium broth, real vegetables, garlic, and lemon for seasoning. 2 weeks later, he came back. "Doc," he said, grinning, "I felt something this morning. First time in months." That's how quickly the body can respond if we stop suffocating it. And salt isn't the only saboteur. There's another culprit, one that hides behind comfort and sweetness. Sugar. It sounds innocent. A muffin with breakfast, a cookie after lunch, a little dessert after dinner. But sugar, especially refined sugar, wreaks havoc on a man's entire system. It spikes insulin. That wears down your blood vessels. It causes inflammation. That weakens your nerves. And worst of all, it disrupts your hormones. As men age, we naturally lose testosterone. But sugar speeds that up and even turns testosterone into estrogen when belly fat rises. Less testosterone means lower libido, less firmness, and slower recovery. I remember James, 72, retired teacher. He said, "Doc, I feel like I've lost part of who I am." He wasn't drinking, wasn't overweight, but he had a sweet tooth, a muffin in the morning, cookies in the afternoon, pie at night. I helped him switch to cinnamon tea, berries, and dark chocolate in moderation. Within a month, his wife called to say thank you. And James? He just smiled and said, "It's good to feel like me again." Small changes, real results. Now let me pause for a moment and say this. If you're finding this helpful or you're just starting to think differently about your health after 60, consider hitting that subscribe button. That way, you won't miss insights made just for men like you. Because the third food we need to talk about, it's even more damaging, and it's probably on your plate right now. Fat. Not all fat, but the kind that clogs your arteries, the kind found in processed meats, fried food, heavy cream, and fast food. You see, the arteries that feed your heart are wide, The ones that feed your brain, a little smaller. But the ones that feed your penis, they're the size of a drinking straw. Any buildup even a little cuts off performance. I had a man named Henry, 69. Big man. Former mechanic. Still in love with his wife, but struggling. I still want to love her like I used to, he said, but my body won't let me. His breakfasts? Bacon. Lunch? Burger. Dinner? Steak or sausage. His heart was strong, but his groin wasn't. Is it vessels? Because the vessels were choked. We made one change. Grilled fish and greens 3 times a week. 6 weeks later, he came in beaming. Doc, it's like someone turned the lights back on. And that's what this is really about. Not just sex, not even erections. It's about light, hope, reconnection, and you can have that again. Your body wants to heal. You just have to stop feeding what's breaking it. I want you to imagine something. Picture your arteries like a garden hose. When you're 30, that hose is soft. Water flows easy. But over time, as pressure builds and residue accumulates, it gets stiff, clogged, and eventually, the water stops. That's what happens to men slowly, quietly, when they keep feeding their system the wrong kind of fat. Not all at once, but over years, that hose becomes a pipe, and pipes don't perform. But I'll tell you what's powerful and what I've seen firsthand in hundreds of men. The moment you give that system a break, the moment you switch out fried sausage for grilled salmon or choose beans and olive oil over heavy cream, the hose begins to soften again. The flow returns. That's not hype. That's human biology. Your arteries want to heal, but they need help. And that help doesn't come from a bottle. It comes from your plate. But we're not done yet. Because even if you clean up your fats, even if you lower sugar and salt, there's still one more threat. One that most men over 60 enjoy, often in the name of relaxing. And it may be quietly dismantling your performance from the inside out. Alcohol. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying you can't have a drink. I'm not here to shame or preach. But I do want you to understand what alcohol, especially beer and frequent evening cocktails, does to a man's system over time. It relaxes you in the moment. Sure. But what it also does is lower testosterone, Erosion, disrupt nitric oxide, the very gas that tells your blood vessels to open and flow, and impair nerve sensitivity, so even if your desire is there, the signal can't reach. I remember Tom, 74, former coach, charismatic, always had a laugh ready. Doc, he said, chuckling, I've had more beers than birthdays, but now I can't rise to the occasion anymore. He tried to laugh it off, but when I looked at him, I saw the weight behind his eyes. He wanted connection again, but his body had grown unresponsive, and he didn't know why. He thought beer was harmless, a nightly companion. What he didn't know was that alcohol, especially regular use, acts like a slow drip of estrogen. It dulls your edge, softens your drive, and over time breaks down the liver, the organ that helps regulate nearly all your male hormones. Tom wasn't drinking excessively, but he was drinking consistently, 2, sometimes 3 beers a night. I asked him to cut it in half, then add a couple dry days a week. Within a month, he looked me in the eye and said, I didn't realize how foggy I'd become until I started clearing up. And the intimacy? It returned. Not because of pills, because of space. Space for his body to function again. So no, you don't have to give up alcohol forever, but you do need to be intentional. Choose wine over beer when you can. Avoid drinking right before bed, and give your body days to recover. It makes a difference, not just below the belt, but in your mind, your clarity, your spark. Now, there's one last food I need to talk to you about. And I say food, but really, it's a category that men like Walter, and maybe you rely on more than they realize. I call them the silent destroyers, processed foods. You know the ones: microwave dinners, canned chili, snack bars, crackers, sandwich meats, things you eat because they're easy, because cooking feels like too much work, because you don't want to bother. But what's hiding in those packages is more than just convenience. It's sodium, preservatives, hydrogenated oils, refined sugars, and artificial chemicals your body doesn't recognize. When those ingredients go in, your blood vessels constrict, your hormones get confused, your nerves grow dull, and the part of you that once felt alive goes silent. Walter was 70, widowed, and just starting to feel something for someone again. He came to me desperate. "Doc," he said, "I want to connect with her, but I can't." He wasn't sick, wasn't weak, but he'd fallen into the easy food trap. Everything came in a package: sandwiches, frozen dinners, snack bars. And every meal was chipping away at his vascular health. We didn't overhaul his diet overnight. We started with simple shifts: real eggs instead of breakfast sandwiches, fresh cooked chicken and vegetables instead of microwave trays, a handful of nuts and fruit instead of crackers or cookies. And within a month, he felt something stir, not just physically, but emotionally. He walked straighter, spoke with more weight, and told me quietly, "Doc, I feel like I'm getting a second chance." That's what this is really about. Not just food, not just erections. It's about you, about remembering what it feels like to move with strength, to wake up with purpose, to look someone in the eye and know you still matter. Food is not just fuel, it's signal. It tells your body, keep going or shut down. And when you feed it junk, even if it's convenient, even if it's what you've always done, your system loses trust. But when you start feeding it real, honest nourishment, your body remembers. It responds. Sometimes slowly, sometimes with a spark, but always with possibility. So here's what I want you to know. You don't need to do it all at once. Just pick one of these foods, the one you lean on most, and begin to replace it. Not with restriction, but with respect. Because your body still wants to work, still wants to perform, still wants to connect. It just needs to be reminded through action, not words. And you can start that tomorrow. In the final part of this story, I'll show you the path forward, not just what to cut out, but what to add. The diet that gives you back the edge you thought you'd lost. Stay with me. You're closer than you think. There's a moment I've seen over and over again. A man sits in silence, usually after we've gone over his blood work or talked through his symptoms. He nods. He listens. Then he looks up and says something like, "Okay, Doc, I get it, but what now?" He's not asking for another list. He's asking for something he can do, something that actually matters. And the truth is, what comes next isn't dramatic. It's not found in a bottle. It's found in what you reach for when you wake up. Because after years of treating men over 60, after thousands of conversations behind closed doors, I've learned this. What you do with your first hour of the day shapes your hormones, your blood flow, and your mindset far more than most men ever realize. That's why I give every man a version of what I call the morning restoration rhythm. It's simple, gentle, built for your age and your dignity. And when done consistently, it does something powerful. It tells your body, you're safe, you're nourished, you can perform again. Let me walk you through it. The first step begins even before breakfast. You sit down, not standing, not rushing. Sit down. Pour yourself a glass of room temperature water, and into that glass, add a small pinch of natural sea salt. Why salt? Because as we age, our electrolyte balance changes. We lose minerals faster, and without enough sodium, magnesium, and potassium, our nerve signals and blood pressure control systems falter. That little pinch of salt does something ancient and essential. It reminds your cells to retain water, not just flush it. It supports proper nerve conduction, especially to the pelvic region, and it helps regulate blood pressure without medication. Once you've finished that water, move into breath. I teach a 7-second technique to my patients. It's been shown in medical literature to stimulate nitric oxide, a natural gas your body uses to open up blood vessels, especially the ones that supply the penis. Here's how to do it. Inhale slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold for 2 seconds. Exhale gently through your nose for 6 seconds. Repeat that 4 or 5 times. That's all. What you're doing is signaling your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and restore mode, that calms inflammation, softens arteries, and prepares your hormones to function. After that, you eat. Not a muffin, not toast, not just coffee. You eat food that restores. A few examples I've shared before and still recommend. 2 whole eggs, gently boiled or poached. Not just the whites, the yolks too. They contain choline, B vitamins, and healthy fats that support testosterone and nerve repair. A bowl of oats with a tablespoon of chia seeds. These offer soluble fiber, magnesium, and omega-3s, which clean the arteries and balance your blood sugar, keeping insulin from spiking and testosterone from crashing. A few slices of watermelon, especially the white part near the rind. It contains citrulline, which converts to arginine and increases nitric oxide naturally, like nature's gentle version of ED medication. Half a steamed sweet potato with a pinch of Celtic salt. It's rich in complex carbohydrates and potassium and gives your muscles the slow, stable fuel they need to feel grounded again. You don't need all of them at once, just one, chosen with care. That's the pattern I guide men toward. Water and salt to restore mineral balance, breath to activate blood flow, food to send the right hormonal signal. Done daily, it's not just a routine, it's a retraining. It teaches your body that it's still allowed to perform and thrive even after 60. Because here's the truth that most men don't hear enough. Your body is not giving up on you. It's waiting for you to stop starving it, to stop feeding it confusion, to start giving it what it was always designed to work with. And when you do, even in small ways, it responds. That's why I never push perfection. I push presence. Show up for yourself each morning. Not with pressure, but with rhythm. Let each breath, each bite, each sip be a quiet message. You're not done, you're just returning. Because you are. I've seen it happen more times than I can count. Men who came in thinking it was over. Men who thought the spark was gone for good. Men who had stopped even hoping. And then something shifted. Not overnight, not in a flood of energy, but in a quiet moment. Maybe they woke up with a little more clarity. Maybe their morning stiffness, the right kind, came back. Maybe their partner looked at them and saw someone standing taller, and they realized, it's working. I'm coming back. That's the moment we're working toward. That's why I do this. Because you deserve to feel like yourself again, not just in the bedroom, but in your own body. To walk down the hallway without dragging your legs. To smile at your reflection and feel steady. To reach out for your partner and know that your body will meet the moment. All of that begins not with a doctor, not with a drug. It begins with you, with what you eat, what you breathe, and how you wake. So if you've made it this far, thank you. That tells me you're serious, that you're ready to take the next step. And if this message touched something in you, maybe consider sharing it. Not loudly, not to everyone, but to a friend, a brother, a man you trust. Because sometimes the quiet words of one man to another can light a path neither of them thought they'd walk again. Hey, try eating like this in the morning. It helped me. That's all it takes to begin something real. So tomorrow morning, make the promise. Not to me, to yourself. And keep it. Because you're not done. Not by a long shot. You've still got something to wake up for. Let's make sure your body knows it.